So welcome back everybody. In today's episode we're going to cover 3 different types of tractor mowers. So the ultimate goal of this video right here is to help you make an informed decision on which mower that you might want to purchase. The average person is only going to have 1 mower for their tractor. They're not going to have 3 available like I've had for many years. And guess what? There's so many options out there. It can be a daunting task trying to figure out which one you should spend your money on. So I made a video many years ago comparing the Finish mower to the Flail mower, and it got a lot of views. A lot of people are interested in it. Now I have your typical rotary mower. You'll hear it called a bush hog, although that's a specific brand, but people just use it across the board for all types of rotary mowers, but we're going to refer to this one today as your rotary mower. All right, so sit back and relax. This is going to be a long video. Go grab you a cold beer, go grab you some popcorn, whatever it is that you need. We're going to go over lots of different factors for you, from serviceability, and we're even going to do a little mowing at the end of this video to try to show you cut quality and everything else. I'm going to go ahead and apologize where I need to shoot this video at, right near my chicken coop. Welcome to the country. You're going to hear a rooster crowing constantly. That's just the sounds of the country. Right on cue, there he is. So for starters, I don't have a clue what you're looking to mow, what size tractor that you have, but we're going to talk about some horsepower requirements, cutting field grasses, brush. We're not going to talk heavy cutting here today because, to be honest with you, none of these mowers are set up for heavy duty, brush clearing. You're going to want to get into medium duty mowers, heavy duty mowers, or flails with hammers on it. The average person's looking to take care of yard grasses and do a little brush clearing as well. All right, so if we start over here, this is a very popular choice for most people. This is a Finish mower. So just kind of consider this a mower deck off of your typical type lawnmower, but made to go behind a tractor. This is ultimately for grass cutting and grass cutting only. You'll see some people run these through brush. This is not set up and designed for that at all. We're going to service this here in just a second because my belts were worn out, floppy, and stretched and need to be replaced, but you're going to see the way the deck drive and belt system is on it. Well, if you go run this in much thick grass or much thick brush, it's just going to burn the belts up on you. It's just not designed for that at all. So this particular Finish mower is about 7.5 foot wide cut right here. It's got 5 blades underneath that look very similar to mower blades, and then it's got 2 drive belts underneath these covers right here, and it's driven from, well, your PTO on your tractor. If you're looking for strictly grass cutting, well, this is the way to go. And I should preface all this by saying I was going to compare a 0-turn mower to this, but that's a whole completely different video. So I'm going to be honest with you, when you're talking commercial 0-turn mowers, nothing cuts grass better or quicker in reality than a 0-turn mower. And I'm talking yard grass, nice finish cuts, not mowing gigantic fields where you could get batwing mowers and much bigger equipment for the backside of your tractor. All right, so let's go over some quick specs here. It's going to be, depending on the size that you have, it's anywhere from 3, 4, or 5 blades underneath. Again, they're very comparable to lawnmower style blades. You have big wheels on the outside that float, that have adjustable collars here. I'll zoom in just a second, and it runs off 3-point of your tractor. It's a very basic design and very comparable to a lawnmower again. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind if you're shopping for a Finish mower, you're typically going to see 2 different styles. A side discharge, like your standard lawnmower, or a complete rear discharge like this model right here. There's some pros and cons to both. Personally, if you're going for the ultimate cut, I think a side discharge leaves you the best finished product. Because you got to keep in mind, you have mower blades in here that are cutting, then it's throwing it into the next mower blade, then to the next one, then to the next one, all the way till it side discharges. So the grass that it's cutting and throwing across is getting mulched up better, and it leaves you with a thrown out, better looking finished product. Whenever you have a rear discharge like this, all the mower blades are cutting and dumping straight out the rear, and what you're going to find is windrows, or actual rows of grass kind of left behind. Now, there is a benefit to a rear discharge. One of the big reasons that a lot of people run rear discharge is the way it throws materials out the back. Side discharge can be dangerous if you're mowing by roadways. If you have a house with a lot of windows and glass in it, you got to be careful about the way that you tend to drive around things. It wants to discharge out the side. Also, because again, side discharge loads up from blade to blade to blade as it's trying to move across and throw out the side, it tends to have a little bit more load on your tractor or on your mower if you happen to have a side discharge underneath your mower. Rear discharge, because it's cutting and dumping the materials quickly, especially if you're cutting in thick grass, I find that this is less of a load on your tractor. Now personally, I picked this up because it's wide as can be, and I've been mowing pasture grass with it. It's not really designed for that, but I can mow quick, I can mow a huge swath with it, and I didn't care that it just kind of dumped grass out the rear. Now if you're mowing a yard that's kept up well, guess what? There's not a whole lot of grass clippings, and I don't notice any windrows when I'm mowing out here in a yard like this. So I'd say you'd be no difference, honestly, between rear and side discharge if you're going to constantly stay on top of your grass. But again, mowing thicker grass, rear discharge, less load, but does leave windrows. These are very straightforward as far as height adjustments. For example, you see we have all these different size collars right here. You can take this pin out of the top and you can drop the shaft out of there, and you can move them collars up top to lower this unit down. I have it set really high for all the thick mowing that I do out here in this pasture. So it's very easy to adjust your wheels up and down. You have to go do that on all four. I'm gonna cut some clips here real quick showing me changing the belts out in service on this. The belts are not the world's quickest to change out on this in tension, but it's really not complicated at all. You can do it with some basic hand tools in a little bit of time, and the mower blades are very easy to change out, just as easy as your lawnmower, probably even easier, because you can just lift this up on the 3-point of your tractor, get right underneath to a single bolt, change them right out. All right, so let's talk a little about the Finish mower itself as far as the maintenance goes, because I need to change the belts out on this mower. Now, some positives of a Finish mower right here is we're about to pop the tops off, and I'm gonna show you. It's 2 belts, kind of like your typical mower, although a little more complicated to change. And we have 5 blades underneath on this model. Depending on the size you get, they may have 2, 3, 4, 5 blades. I don't know what's all available out there, but it's much like a mower. Very few blades to deal with, 1 or 2 belts to deal with. Very easy process overall. I would say these belts are a little more complicated to change in tension than my Flail mower. And then obviously when we're comparing this to a rotary mower, well, there's just no belts or nothing to change on those. So the rotary mower wins hands down. But if you're familiar with changing mower deck belts, well, this is kind of all a very simple system, and the number of blades also wins hands down. Relatively affordable, $100 and some odd for a set. I can get quite a bit of mowing out of them, sharpen them several times before I have to change them out again. So this is kind of mid-pack right here as far as some of the features and cost and serviceability of it. So you're going to have to take these 2 large covers off right here. On this particular mower, it's just a few 13mm nuts. Now we can remove this whole top cover right here. All right, so something to discuss really quickly whenever it comes to Finish mowers. Again, they're all gonna be a little different. You can see my belt change out there. So I had to lift up some center sections. You see these groove slots right here where the gearbox is. There's some adjustments up front. That's how you tension your belts in and out. So yes, there's a little more adjustment and time here than say your typical lawnmower. There's also like hidden grease fasteners up there. This particular Finish mower has the add-on kit where you don't have to grease underneath, remove the covers. You can grease from the outside right here. There's grease fittings on wheels, grease fittings on the shafts. So there's a lot going on here compared to, well, your typical lawnmower. But overall, not extremely difficult. So I'm gonna pop these covers back on, and we're gonna change the blades real quick. That's a very easy process. And then this one's ready to cut. We'll move on to the Flail mower. All right, next, let's talk about a Flail mower. Not a lot of people know about these, but they're starting to gain popularity big time. This has been my longest owned mower right here. I've had it forever. And I kind of consider this a middle of the road mower, in between the rotary mower and the finishing mower. It just depends on what you're planning on cutting. Now there's some positives and negatives to a Flail mower right here, so let's discuss these. By the way, I'm going to show you a quick little servicing clip here on how to access the belts and what it looks like underneath, because not a lot of people show off the underneath side of these. All right, so take a look at that. There is just a center drum up there with hanging Y blades right here. And you can see they're individual blades, and they have cutting edges on both sides, so you can flip these around and reuse your blades as long as they're not heavily damaged. Now, I think there's 56 blades in total underneath here. That is one of the big drawbacks to a flail mower. There is a lot of blades to change and to sharpen, but I tend to leave mine rounded over because this Y set of blades that you're looking at right there not only are good for cutting grass, but they're really good for brush as well. You're not going to cut really thick material with this. That's where the rotary mower shines, but this is kind of a jack of all trades mower right here. So here is a look at the underneath side. Not a whole lot going on. You can change out these shackles. You remove that one bolt right there and pull it out, drop your blades, and again, you can sharpen both sides and flip them around. But it is definitely an involved process to sharpen that many blades. Overall, these are very simplistic. Not a whole lot going on with these tile mowers, but they have some benefits. Y'all, I have dragonflies just lighting all over me. I don't know what's going on here. Look at them. It's distracting me. Y'all go eat some bugs. Get out of here. Look at all of these dragonflies. All right, let's get back focused. So some positives to a flail mower. So you can get different types of blades on a flail. I happen to own two different types for this one right here. What's called a duck foot blade, which kind of looks like a duck foot with one sharp edge. That's a higher lift blade. It's made just for cutting grasses, and it does a really good job. But because it's a higher lift, it does put a little bit more of a load on your tractor. Then you'll see the most common blade is the Y blades in that video clip that I just showed you. Those are a good middle of the road blade and what I recommend running on a flail. So those can be sharpened to where they can cut grass quite well, but I tend to leave mine rolled over because they do a really good job of cutting mid-sized brush. I'm talking like 1 inch thick brush and down, although you'll see a lot of flails are rated for higher than that, but I recommend sticking with mid-sized brush, thick grasses, and you can even cut yard grasses with this just fine. Another good positive to a flail, look how compact it is. Again, you think it's a tiller. So not only does this compact size work good underneath a building, it doesn't take up a lot of space, but it's really compact on the back side of your tractor. Plus, most flails are offset. I have two different adjustments here on this flail. Let me show you that. You see where this 3-point hookup goes? There's also a whole nother set of hookups right here. I can move all this over and change the offset of the flail, centering it more behind the tractor. Now, this is a huge benefit to a flail that not a lot of people notice or think about until you own one. So with this being offset way outside the tire on my tractor, now I can run this up next to trees, to a fence line, everywhere else, and I'm not putting my tractor right into a bunch of limbs or potentially catching it on the fence or running something over. This offsets at least a foot outside of my tractor in this position right here, and again, I can bring it over and center it more. And this particular flail right here, which is an Italian-made flail from Coroni, is sold by Agri Supply here in the United States, and they even offer a hydraulic kit for this that you can mount up here. And if you have rear hydraulics on your tractor, you can bring this in and out as you mow. That's a pretty neat feature right there, and that is a huge positive to a flail. The compact size and the offset, so you can mow along those fences, buildings, anything else without sticking your tractor into it. So a con of this, you have like 56 blades underneath here to sharpen. I only sharpen mine about once a year. I tend to leave them rounded over because it cuts rough grass just fine like that, and you don't really want a super sharp blade. When you're brush cutting, you hit anything, it chips easier. I tend to prefer a slightly rounded over blade. But if you're gonna mow grass and strictly grass, this probably isn't the machine for you. If you're looking for one that can cut thick brush, thick grass, and still maintain a yard, this is a jack of all trades mower right here. Here's another really good positive to a flail. Everything is kept underneath. It doesn't discharge and throw rocks and limbs out the back. That's why you see a lot of county mowers running flails by highways and all, because they're not a very dangerous mower at all. Aside from, well, having 56 blades to maintain and sharpen, this is typically kind of the one that I consider the best of all of them. Now, depending on what type of flails you go with, they can get very, very expensive. Coroni's kind of always been one of the more affordable options here, although they've made a dramatic price jump over the last couple of years as well. You're talking literally $1,000, $2,000 more for certain types of flails over, say, a rotary mower in a lot of instances. Of course, with supply chain issues, everything has kind of went up here lately. One other con worth mentioning, if you're mowing really tall brush, because this is such a compact size, sometimes when you mow over brush, you can look back and you'll have high sticks sticking up, but when you go back over it with this, well, guess what? It kind of tends to mulch those right back up. That's another huge benefit to a flail mower, the mulching capability. It's chopping everything up underneath there and it lays it in a nice, clean, flat, mulched pile behind you as you're going. It's just nice and evenly spread. This by far does better mulching and cutting in thick material than, say, a rotary cutter that kind of tends to windrow and just throw big blobs and chunks out behind you. You can see the big roller on the backside. That's essentially what this is rolling on. So it keeps you from scalping, from falling in holes. That's another good benefit to it. Whereas you can fall in holes kind of easy with wheels on finish mowers, and you can bend those quite easy too if you have a lot of holes in your pasture. So that's something to keep in mind as well there. It also has skids on the side. You can see you can adjust those skids, and there is an adjustment with a bolt on the inside here to change the height of your roller if you want to raise and lower this for your type of cut that you're going for. Now, one thing to keep in mind, the skids on the side, if you don't have those adjusted correctly or not riding on the roller enough, when you spin around, those can actually dig your yard, so that is a negative to a flail. Whereas a finish mower on wheels, well, you just don't have that risk of really spinning around, tearing your yard up. This is much better for yard grasses. Now, having a really big wide deck like this with wheels on the side, you do have a better chance of doing some scalping as a result if you have an extremely uneven yard. So keep all that in mind. Let's move on to the rotary mower, but while I got the camera off to the side, let's go ahead and talk about one big con and negative, something I have always disliked about your big rotary mowers. It's the size. Look how far we stick out behind the tractor. Look at how much storage we have to have underneath our building for this large mower. And whenever you're turning the tractor around in tight spaces, say I'm mowing around trees or just in tight spaces in general, this sticks so far out, you have to have a huge area to spin around. You're always hitting stuff. There's my friend the dragonfly again, getting me distracted. That's just a big con to these. They're big and they're bulky. But let's talk about some of the pros as well, because by far the rotary mower is probably the most popular tractor mowing attachment. This is typically what the majority of people buy. And honestly, it's because it's been around forever. It's a tried and true design. It's very simplistic, and it's kind of almost a jack of all trades again, although I consider the flail mower more of the jack of all trades. It cuts grass good, it cuts, brush, thick grass is good, but if you're wanting to get into thicker material, that 1.5 to 2 inch stuff, you're going to want to get into a rotary cutter. And if you go any higher than that size material, you're going to want to get a medium or heavy duty rotary mower, and those can get quite expensive, but all the parts in the gearboxes are overbuilt to handle all that constant abuse you're going to put them through. But let's talk light duty rotary mowers right here. This is what the average person's going with, and for good reason. This is typically your cheapest mowing option. Almost every tractor dealership's gonna have one on there. You see them with package deals all the time with the tractor. And again, if you're trying to maintain an overgrown property, this is probably the mower to go to, and it cuts grass okay. Although this is not my first choice when it comes to trying to get a nice clean cut in a yard. It has two really thick blades on it that you typically don't leave a sharp edge on because you're doing mostly brush cutting with this. And again, if I'm bumping rocks or stuff hidden in the grass, I want kind of a more rounded over blade so I'm not chipping it as bad as something I'm trying to keep a sharp edge on. Now we'll take a look underneath right here. I'll show you a clip. This has what's called a stump jumper. That's the pan that you see underneath. So these are kind of built a little more robust and designed to run over logs and stumps and things such as that. And take a look at the thick size of those two blades underneath right there. So that right there is what does all your busting up and your brush cutting and everything else. But those thick blades don't have high lift, and they're not the world's best for grass cutting. Again, you can cut grass with this, but it's just not really set up and designed for good finish cut. You don't see much else going on underneath these. That's the positive to one of these. Very simplistic. You have two blades to deal with, that's it. 5 blades over here, that's not bad. 56 blades on that flail right there. And again, you may have hammers depending on your type of flail, or those duck foots if you're really going after grass, but the most common is going to be the Y blades. So 2 blades to maintain, 1 to replace if you damage it. It's just a very simplistic machine, and typically they're relatively affordable. Again, just keep in mind, they're big, they're bulky. That's their biggest drawback to me by far. And if you don't set them up right and you go to spin around and you have this too low to the ground because you're trying to get a low grass cut, these also tend to scalp a yard with the side rails. It's all in the type of mower you get. Does it have a floating top link design like this one? And do you have everything pitched and adjusted properly? We could have a whole nother episode on that. So if you're going to be doing more thicker brush cutting, maybe trying to take care of overgrown property, mowing ditches, might buy more property in the future and think you're gonna, tame overgrown property there, this is probably the best mower to go with for all of that. Typically, if you're gonna have a large yard and want to do fine finish mowing, well, you may want a combo of mowers like this, or a zero turn in a mower like this is kind of what I see most people going for. Another pro to this mower, there's just nothing to really service. Couple little grease fittings, take care of your blades, check on the oil in your gearbox. This is the most simplistic of all, the least amount of maintenance as well. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, I used to hate this mower. This is my father's mower and I bought it from him, and I used to mow this mower, I don't know, 8 or 10, 12 years ago. So I've got a lot of time on this mower, even though I recently brought it back into my life. And there was a game changer on this particular mower. We get a lot of dirt mounds out here, armadillo holes, big fire ant mounds and things in the field, and that's a problem for these with straight shafts with shear pins. It seemed like constantly every time I mowed and hit a dirt mound, I was shearing a pin on the shaft on this. I had to shut the tractor down, get back there, replace a pin. It was a nightmare of an experience. That, along with how big and bulky these are, I just didn't want one, and I haven't had a rotary mower for a long time. That Flail used to be my main mower over there, and it really did a good job. But I discovered a slip clutch shaft right here. Actually, I've known about them forever. I just finally got one for this, and it was a game changer for me. It's made me fall back in love with this particular mower right here. So I've discussed this in another episode, but if you're not familiar with it, there are discs in here, just slip discs, basically pretending this is a clutch, essentially is what it is. You tighten these bolts and put a certain amount of tension on those discs. So long story short, when you hit a big dirt mound or thick grass or a big log or something underneath this and jam it up, well, there's no pin right there to shear. It slips on those clutches until you get off of that dirt or whatever else it is, and then it grabs and goes right back to mowing like it should. That makes this so easy to mow with. So if you're gonna get a rotary mower, make for sure you upgrade and get you a slip clutch drive shaft right here. They're worth every penny, but you gotta make sure you stay on top of the maintenance with them. Don't let them get a bunch of rainwater in them, snow, everything else. You've got to spin these at the beginning of the season, loosen up the clutch packs in there, or the disc, so to speak, and they'll work perfectly for you. I love, love, love this drive shaft. It changed my overall maintenance and hatred of this mower right here. There's nothing I can do about the overall large size. It is what it is, but again, for thick brush, thick field grasses, this is a good mower to have. All right, so a very, very important conversation we need to have is horsepower requirements. Now, a lot of people talk about this as well. So depending on the size tractor that you have, a lot of people, well, tractors are expensive, so they're buying lower horsepower models, and a lot of them pushing to the limits on attachments. So let's talk horsepower requirements, because these all have completely different needs. So if you happen to have a lower horsepower tractor, size your equipment accordingly. I don't know what you own. Typically on a tractor like my 4066R John Deere right here, you're gonna need at least a 6-foot implement to go just barely outside the tires. So I tend to run everything 6 foot plus. This is a 6-foot rotary cutter, 6-foot flail, and again, that's about a 7.5-foot deck right there on that finish mower. So I've got a lot of time mowing with tractors and these three right here. So I can give you an honest feedback and opinion on which one is going to be the most laborious on your tractor, wear it down the most. So if you're running really low PTO horsepower, but you want to get into a mower, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, your two best options by far is a finish mower if you're just mowing in thin grass. You can tend to run a really big finish mower on low horsepower, and believe it or not, this Flail does an extremely good job on low horsepower. This 6-foot model right here, I used to have it on a 40-horse John Deere, no problems at all. And I've read a lot of reviews online of this particular model right here, and I see people running them on 30-horsepower tractors. Spinning that lightweight drum, it just does not take a whole lot of power. By far, the most needed PTO horsepower is running this one right here. Some people may disagree with me, but I'm telling you, when it comes to putting those blades in really thick field grasses, that just puts a heavy, constant strain on a mower like this. The grasses put more of a strain on these mowers than thick brush, because typically thick brush, while it looks thick, it's just spindly and you're busting through stuff. That thick grass out here is just, again, constantly making contact with the blades. Even with my 66 horse John Deere, when I'm out in really thick grass and mowing along at a pretty good speed with this mower right here, I can feel and hear it pull down the engine far more than these. Honestly, when I'm mowing that thick grass with these two mowers right here, I typically never hear a change in tone in the engine. But this one right here, you're slinging a lot of weight, a lot of blades, and it makes a big difference. Let's talk about noise. Some of y'all may be noise sensitive. So whenever it comes to probably the quietest mower that we have, probably going to be my Finish mower, although the Flail's not far behind it with that dome and drum. It has a different tone to it, but it kind of takes the noise out. The loudest mower by far, this one right here, it has a drone to it. So if you're sensitive to noise like that and it's going to drive you crazy, this one tends to be kind of the louder one, and it makes my engine work the hardest. So I tend to have the engine revved up the most, and I'm listening to the engine as well. Although I typically run earbuds and I'm listening to a podcast for music, but I thought I'd mention that there are different sounds to all these as well. When it comes to parts and availability, the Flail, because they're the least common, is probably going to have the least amount of available parts. Although Agri Supply, which ships all across the United States, stocks every single part for all these Caroni Italian-made mowers, and we have one only about an hour away from us. Beautiful stores if you've ever been to them. Has every single replacement part, bearings, blades, everything. So you're covered there. But your rotary mower, you're by far going to find, it's just really blades is all you're replacing. You're going to find those at most tractor shops. So parts availability, this one probably wins out right here. As far as the belts and blades go for these two mowers as well, I'm also finding those on Amazon. All right, well, I think we covered enough here. So here's what we're about to do. I'm not going to run the Finish mower in thick brush. It's just not designed for that at all. I'm not burning up my brand new set of belts that I just put on there. So we have a yard that was mowed last week, but it's already grown up this thick. The camera doesn't show it. We need to do some quick yard mowing, what a lot of you are going to do. So then if we go out into that field, that grass is very thick, hasn't been mowed in a couple of weeks. It's probably this tall, really thick. You can almost cut hay out there right now. And that's really a bit much for a Finish mower, but we're going to run it through at a good clip. We're going to run the Flail, give you some comparison cuts, and then we're going to run this mower right here. Then we'll move to the back side of the property where I have some like 6 foot tall, really thick brush. We'll run the Flail so you can kind of look at how it mulches and leaves stuff behind. And then we'll run through real quick with the rotary mower and just kind of show you how it busts everything up and what it tends to leave behind as well. right, so take a look at one big benefit to the flail. Again, that offset I was telling you about. It's probably sticking close to 16, 18 inches outside this tire. So again, if there's limbs here or a fence line I want to mow along, well, the tractor is not making contact with any of that, and this can get right up next to buildings, everything else. It's a really good benefit to a flail. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that little bit of mowing. By the way, I want to let you know I have tons of videos on the channel of every single one of these mowers, doing my daily mowing, thick mowing, clearing new property, all that stuff. So feel free to check the channel out. We have like approaching 1,000 videos on the channel. So let's don't make this video any longer than it needs to be with the mowing. But if you can see behind me, over here was the rotary mower. Directly behind me right here was the flail. And we just mowed that swath of grass over there with the finish mower. So first thing I want to point out, look right here at the flail. Because it has a roller on the back, it makes a striping pattern. So whatever direction you're going, it lays the grass over, and that's called striping. A lot of people actually prefer that because it looks really good, but there's a negative to striping. You can see going this direction, the grass looks completely different than when I came back this direction. That's that stripe because the grass is laid that direction going down, this direction coming back. So that means you have to be careful with a flail on your mowing pattern if that's going to bother you, seeing different stripes out there. If you mow all in the same direction going around a field or your yard, well, the grass is it's gonna look different. And you really need to alter your patterns coming back and forth to get that beautiful, like American flag look striping, but that does kind of force you to mow a certain direction. If you don't care about the striping and it doesn't bother you if it's all mixed match in the field, then disregard that. It does not matter at all. The other thing worth noting, I showed you a good benefit to the rotary mower is because it sticks so far out behind the tractor, which is a con, it's also a positive for mowing underneath the limbs. And by far the rotary mower mows the best in reverse. The flail not so good because that roller on the backside, it mushes your grass and your brush down. You got to pull back forward before it really actually cuts because it's designed to cut in one direction. Does not matter with that rotary mower. The blades are spinning all the way around, cuts just as good going back as forward, and it gets underneath the limbs. So that's definitely a plus for the rotary mower. Keep that in mind. The finish mower, you're not really going to mow in reverse with that. You're just trying to go and knock your yard and everything else out. So let's take a look at these cuts. This isn't scientific at all. We didn't mow a whole lot. Again, a lot of videos on the channel, but just kind of want to show you real quick and what to expect. Please keep in mind I have these set high because I mainly mow really thick grass. All right, so up here was mowed about a week ago, but this grass grows so thick, I mean, y'all take a look at it. It's still thick. Most people are gonna mow yard before that. And what you can't see is there's a line out here. That's why I stopped mowing the yard and started mowing the pasture. That's 2 weeks old and it's twice as thick as this. So if we look at the rotary mower, you can see it kind of stripes going different directions as well, the way the blades swoop around and lay the grass over. Also, mowing with a tractor tends to lay your grass down one direction too because the tractor tires are so heavy. So you still get some striping with that as well. So if we go from unmowed grass right there to mowed grass, you're gonna mow about an inch shorter than this for a yard, but overall not bad. I don't see too much sticking up to be an old rough cut rotary mower. So this is where a rotary mower kind of leaves windrows. You see how it's threw grass to one side right here. It throws random clumps out like this. There's clumps all down there. Rotary mowers just kind of tend to puke everything out the back and sling it everywhere and cause some minor windrows of grass, so keep that in mind. All right, so now you can see how thick this grass is, really, really thick. If you come out here and look at this, I don't really see anything sticking up. Yes, it's mowed high, but acceptable, especially for a pasture. All right, now if we come over here to the Flail mower, I'll go ahead and tell you what I really like about a Flail. One thing I do like about the cut and one thing I don't like. So there is unmowed grass right there. Come over here to mowed grass. Kind of similar, I guess. You can see the stripe definitely where the roller pressed down. So one thing I really love about the Flail, look at all the cuttings up here that's already drying out in the sun. You see how there's even distribution? I love that about a Flail because it's cutting like this and puts the grass right back down behind the mower. It's a nice even distribution. Whenever you get to mowing extremely thick field grass, which say a rotary mower, it tends to leave it in such a thick windrow that sometimes it can kill your grass off. That's never going to be a problem with a Flail because it's just putting it back even across the entire rotor right here. It doesn't leave it in thick strips. Now that's only in extreme cases. So one negative to the Flail, you can see right here where my tractor tire went, that grass is going to eventually lay back up because my tractor's so heavy it presses the grass down. Did it over here as well, but I have not cut that because don't forget the Flail's offset of this tractor tire. So this is worth mentioning. This is only a problem in really thick grass. This is not a problem in thin grass. So you're going to come back out here in a few hours and you're going to see some grass stand right back up where the tractor tires were, because a Flail does not have your typical type mower blades. It does not have a lot of lift. It's just a rotating drum. There's practically no lift in there, so it doesn't pull that smush grass back up and cut it like a rotary mower, which a rotary mower is not great, not a lot of lift there. Your Finish mower by far has the most lift, and it tends to cut your mush down grass the best so it doesn't stand back up later in the day. So keep that in mind. Finish mower wins hands down as far as the most lift and cutting the grass the cleanest. All right, you can see up here, nice cut from the Finish mower. This is probably your best looking cut for sure. Here's thick grass, and then I went over to here. I can see a little bit of where the tractor tracks have mashed down the grass, but it cut far more than what's mashed down over there with the Flail. So if you look at a rear discharge Finish mower like this one, this is a little bit of a problem. You see how it's kind of windrowed, a thick bunch of grass right here. It windrows as well. Whereas a side discharge, I mean, it still kind of throws a big windrow off to the side, but it tends to spread your grass clippings out more, a side discharge does. If you're looking for the ultimate fine cut, well, zero turn it is, but then I would do a side discharge Finish mower as a second choice. Rear discharge is easy on the tractor, lower horsepower, just dumps it out the rear, but you are left with some grass like this. Now, again, this is thick grass. If you mow your yard weekly, you're not going to see that because your grass clippings are so short, it does not matter. So trust me on that. So here's the other beautiful thing about that big wide Finish mower. Look at the size of that cut all the way over to here. 7.5 feet. You can cover a lot of ground quickly with a Finish mower, and they do not need much horsepower. Neither does a Flail. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed this test. I spent the majority of the day making this video for you, and I'm sure there's plenty of things I've missed. By all means, drop a comment down there and cover something that you think is very important about these and worth mentioning to viewers if you own some of these mowers. I always encourage everybody to read the comments. There's plenty of people down there that's going to provide their input. Well, good and bad. Hopefully it's just all good input in this video. There absolutely is no perfect mower, it just doesn't exist. It's really best to own a combination of two. The best combination to me is a zero turn and maybe a rough cut mower, which is actually what I am going to head to now. But depending on your needs, your tractor, one of these probably makes the most sense for you. I'd be curious if you'd leave a comment and let me know which one you like the best, which one fits your needs the most. So after years and years and years of owning all of these mowers, this is my most recent purchase for my my father, but I used to run this mower back before I even started a YouTube channel. I have made my mind up. I said I was going to keep 2 mowers. I've ultimately decided to only keep 1 mower. I want to free up some shop space and I want to free up some cash. I got a few purchases that we want to make, and I just bought a dump trailer, so I knew I was going to sell some equipment to put some of that money back in the bank. And believe it or not, my most hated mower back in the day, which is the rotary mower, I've decided that's the one mower I'm going to keep, and I'm going to sell my Flail mower and I'm going to sell my Finish mower. By the way, there's an email down in the video description if you want to contact me about that, assuming I still have them available by the time I post this. So the ultimate reason I made the decision to keep the rotary mower, I have a commercial 0 turn. I do the majority of my grass mowing with that. We may wind up with another 0 turn in the future. You just don't ever know as the channel grows. And well, we have clearing out brush to do in the future for some cattle we're going to put in. You never know if you may purchase more property, all kinds of things like that. So I want to have the capability of mowing a little bit thicker brush. We're also planning on this coming fall, next spring, fencing in this entire pasture and putting cattle out there. That's the whole reason we planted this pasture, and the grass that you see is for cattle grazing. So my mowing is about to go dramatically down, and I just want a rough cut mower to knock the perimeter of the property down a couple times a year. 0 turn is going to take care of the rest. So it's not making as much sense for me anymore to have 3 mowers sitting underneath the barn, taking my room up. Might as well sell them to somebody else that's going to put them to good use. Okay, hopefully y'all enjoyed the video. This is all I can think of to share with you right now. I'm sure I missed some valid points. Hopefully I gave you the knowledge and information that you need to make a proper decision. These are big purchases, so hopefully you've got what you need to spend your money correctly. I know you've worked hard for it, and you get the right mower for you, your property, and your tractor. We'll catch you on the next video.